Hello and welcome to another episode of Interview with a Schizophrenic. I'm your host, Duncan Samurai Singer, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming back Joshua. I spoke to Joshua I think it was last month. Um, Joshua is 25 from North Carolina. He's got schizophrenia and dissociative diagnosis. In the last episode that we talked, he gave a history of what led him to this led him to the present day with regards to his mental health history. And today we want to talk more about Joshua's psychosis symptoms, how it affects his life, and we're just going to delve into that. So hopefully this will be quite interesting for folks to understand more about what a person goes through when they're psychotic, how they react to the real world, um, and things like that. So Joshua, welcome back. How you doing, man?
Well, thank you. I'm doing fantastic, my friend. It's a good morning so far. It's a good morning so far.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me back. Last time I came, I was able to put down a lot of weight that I was carrying, and it felt real good. So I'm very happy to be back. I feel
yeah.
privileged to be back on your show. Thank you very much, my friend. But
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm good, man. It's getting a bit colder here in Scotland. Got the heating on. Just trying to get through the late autumn now. Um, but it's all good. I love living here. It's really relaxing for me. So
That's good. We've had the
yeah,
opposite
I mean,
problem
I
down here.
think
It's
it.
been
I
80
think
all week.
yeah. Oh, really? Is it? Is it?
Yeah, it's been 80
What's the
degrees.
season then?
So it's
What
technically
what
winter.
season is it with you?
So it's winter for us right now, but I live in the south where it
Mm,
typically stays hot for longer. It'll probably cycle off
yeah,
between 80 degrees and somewhere around 65 until January, in which case we'll get about a week of cold, and then it'll be back to spring.
yeah.
Um, the south doesn't stay cold for very long. Mm-mm.
Okay, okay, Joshua. Let's start. I don't know how you want to begin, but
All right.
you could perhaps talk about your early symptoms, or it's up to you how you want to do this. And I'll just interject if I feel something interests me or I want to ask more about it.
Okay. So,
So it's over to you now.
why? Thank you. So for uh, for the general sake of the conversation, I believe that what I suffer to be a Wendigo psychosis, which is a type of psychosis that was first cited back in the Algonquin days, back in Native American times. The Wendigo is a cryptid, a creature of mass destruction from Native American folklore that is accompanied by feelings of intense cold, cannibalism, and generally speaking, wrongdoing. Um, I am not a cannibal in the truest sense. However, while while experiencing psychosis, do become a bit of a social cannibal. My psychosis is accompanied by feelings of extreme cold. In July, when it is 95 degrees, I am often seen wearing a jacket. I'm often seen wearing a scarf, my little scarf, my disassociation scarf that I wear to
Mhm.
hide. I'm always cold. I'm always cold, and I've always been cold. Um, I started experiencing hallucinations very, very young. I began hearing voices very, very young, tactile hallucinations a little bit older. Um, but the cold feeling was always around, and it would come and it would go, but it would always return. Um, when experiencing psychosis, when it fully takes hold of me and it grabs hold of my body, mind, and spirit, I become a social cannibal in the sense that I uh, take great pleasure in the suffering of others. I'll often use insecurities that I'm aware of against people. I will be completely out of character and destroy relationships. And I will be conscious of all of these things and yet powerless to stop them. I consider myself to be a bit of an empath. I enjoy sitting with people while they work stuff out. I enjoy helping people through their problems. I really genuinely do. But when the psychosis takes hold, what ends up happening inevitably is that the information that I learn from the people I'm hanging out with or the people that I'm helping eventually ends up being used against them, against my own will. It is terrifying, and I've become an enemy to many a person who I had no intention of becoming an enemy to.
Yeah.
Um, it's very much a synaptic switch. It is my brain begins to work differently. It is I become a monster, straight up and completely honest with you, and I'm always accompanied by an overwhelming feeling of cold. My hands will shake. I'll wear jackets in July. It's really quite rough. It's really quite rough. Now, I attempt to curtail these feelings, of course, but the funny thing about psychosis is it changes every time. It's on set for me at least. Is like this monster. Different things would trigger me into being a monster. Like sometimes, like I've been stood up before and had that trigger me. I've had, like I mentioned last time, I've had people die and had that trigger me. I've had I've had intense feelings of anger trigger me into becoming this creature that I do not agree with, this creature that I do not appreciate. Um, you asked me last time if there was any sort of I use the phrase survival tactic. I forget which phrase you actually used. I'm sorry, but you asked me if there was any sort of belief that I held about this condition, and to be honest with you, my belief is that I am uh, demonized by a force older than me and more powerful than me. Often, um, that German phrase "Schadenfreude," the pleasure derived from seeing others suffer, a kind of sadism in a way, is not me 9 times out of 10. The kicker is that 10th time. That 10th time, I become somebody entirely different. Somebody that I ran from for years via, drugs and alcohol and, in general, degeneracy. Because I was scared of my own emotional well being. I was scared. I was scared. And then eventually you just kind of get tired of your own bullshit, which, of course, leads me to you here today. Um, yeah, I'm a monster when I'm in psychosis, my friend. I
You,
really truly am. I
you know, Joshua, I just want to, from the last time we spoke, do you feel that, when you're in public, um, this causes an issue in that you can't be your normal self? Um, do you think that is true? That you struggle to be who you want to be in maybe in a strange situation in public, I would say.
Yes, I do feel that way. So I suffer from what's known as agoraphobia. It's a fear of stressful situations. For me, it manifests as I hate being in public. I'm a complete and total recluse. I'm not on social medias. I'm not on. I don't go outside really. I don't go to bars. I don't hang out with people. I've never hung out with people. Like I'll have friends. We talk once every 6 months. The only friend that I speak to regularly, I also happen to be in love with. So it's very, it's a different kind of vibe. Um, but I'll have friends I don't speak to for 8 months at a time. They ask me to hang out, and I say yes, but then bail out. I don't like going outside. I feel as if there's always a pane of glass in between me and the environment around me. I always feel as if I'm in some sort of uh, observation tank. Um, and I always feel as if I need to mirror the vibe and the energies of those around me in order to be valid within a space. I don't feel as if I have my own personality, my own central identity, right? But I don't feel as if I am powerful enough in that energy or in that vibe to make it my own, if that makes any sense to you. Um,
So, so psychosis, I believe, is a malaise of the spirit and the mind. So this is it's it's something, it's beyond the brain. So when I was in my 20s, I also had social anxiety. Um, I would need to drink or smoke. Back when I was in my 20s, I smoked because I was anxious. Um, in my 40s I smoke because it's pleasurable. That's the difference. Um, but when I was in my 20s, it was because of anxiety. Um, because I think I think as a schizophrenic, as someone with a severe mental health condition, it takes us longer to be, it takes us longer to mature in a way. Um, but we reach a level which surpasses the normal mature person, um, because of what we go through. So it take so we struggle, in early adulthood because it's affecting our spirit and mind. But eventually, when we do get to a place of calm and serenity, we actually we're actually more advanced than regular people. So we've got like a longer curve. But do you understand what I mean?
I do understand what you mean, and what you're saying, I hope to be the truth. Um, I really genuinely do. Now, I'm of the belief that because schizophrenics and because similarly suffering mental ill people, because hallucinations are present in BPD as well, um, that because we're able to struggle the way that we do, we unlock like a deeper empathy. We're able to understand more. We're able to
Mm.
withstand more. We're able to when we decide to sit with people and we decide to help them through their things, we have a sort of um, a different gear. I've noticed. So as of late, I've actually become the manager on a Discord server for mental health for people who suffer hallucinations, and it's a subsidiary group of the Hearing Voices Network. If you're familiar, um, it's a psychiatric movement
Yeah.
that is, while it's pro psychiatry, it allows for all beliefs of the condition to exist and be valid. And I've learned quite a bit about myself. It's been really quite lovely. Being able to sit and help people through their things, and I believe that because I've suffered the way that I have, and because I did so much in silence, I have a different uh, temerity. I have a more hardened. I'm able to withstand more. I do genuinely hope that I'm able to achieve a serenity because as it feels now, it feels nigh impossible. And I understand that's youth. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
young people tend to think that the world is what it is now.
You know. When I was younger, one problem I had was that I thought I was the only person in the world to be going through this. And it helps so much when you realize, there's not many people like us or go through severe mental health, but there are other people and we do have familiar experiences. And I think that is so helpful, you know.
It's so
Um,
helpful. It's been the most helpful aspect of my recovery. So there are three phases to recovery. There's early, acute, and recovery. I believe I'm currently in the recovery phase from my most recent stint of psychosis. It lasted for 9 months. The recovery is very slow goings. But the ability, so in my server, we have people from Germany, we got people from South Africa, we got people from Canada, and we're all able to bond and share with each other, and it's really quite beautiful because you hear so much about social isolation, you hear so much about kind of the reclusive nature that I believe people willing and able and it's really been great for me. I was told in therapy that the most important human emotion is hope. And the coolest thing about hope is that it often stems from empathy. You know what I mean? By being able to understand things, by being able to emotionally reconcile, you're able to inspire a sort of hope in yourself by just simply seeing the brighter side. When you see the brighter side of things, it seems as if you can keep going a little bit easier. Um, and
yeah,
just the ability to bond with people, you know what I mean, has been fascinating. It's been fantastic. Um,
yeah.
you know,
You
and
know,
it's all been
Joshua,
online.
do you want to talk about? So, yeah, do you want to talk about your hallucinations?
Yes, yes, I would. So I actually have to correct the record. Last time I was on your show, I mentioned that my first visual hallucination, was a group of four shadow children running around me in circles in the basement. And I must correct the record because my mother brought up a separate hallucination I had when I was a child. So when I was around the age of 2 or 3, somewhere in that age range, I became best friends with a squirrel that nobody else could see. The squirrel had a name, the squirrel had a personality, the squirrel and I were best friends. This hallucination lasted for 3 years, and when I was 5, the squirrel died, and I made everybody in my family hold a funeral and speak. And everybody went along with it because they thought I was just imaginative, but the squirrel was as real as you and I to me. Um, and so that technically is my first visual hallucination. And then after that, the shadow children came. And after that, they consolidated into a large form named Ziggy, who still terrorizes me to this day. Um, my first auditory hallucinations. Would you like my first one or the ones I currently suffer from? Let me ask you that.
So, talk about whichever ones are more significant.
Okay, so I'll talk about the ones that I currently suffer. Um, Visually, I still am visited by Ziggy, who's about 7 foot tall, shadow person with flame red hair. He is the dominant voice in my head. He's the one that issues me commands. He's the one who is kind of the play-by-play guy on the commentary table that lives behind my eyes. He's the one who controls the rest. He's the king of my world. As much as that pains me to say. Uh, Most recently, I went to an amusement park about 2 weeks ago, and some at some point throughout the night, I began being given commands, violent commands, to kick children. I ended up bailing out of the amusement park before it got to the point where my hands are shaking, or it got to the point where, of course, I acted on anything because that's not how people behave. Um, I was able to bail out. Um, and ever since, it's just been my typical. I hear flashbang sounds, so I don't know if you've ever played Call of Duty, um, but when you throw a
Yes,
flashbang
Sam.
in that game, there's a very specific sound effect. I hear that
Hmm.
at least once an hour for anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute and a half. It's really quite. I gotta like grit my teeth to get through it. I hear voices, I hear whispers, I hear my name getting shouted from far off and away. It's a lot of the reason why I seclude myself is because, well, people know my name. So, and I often find it difficult to separate people's voices from the voices in my head. So I often have to ask, "Did you just call me?" And of course, I'm always looked at like a as if I were crazy. I'm not, but as if I were. Um, Tactily, I feel bugs. I get bug hallucinations. They live in my bones and they often burrow up into the surface. I feel them crawling on my skin. I feel them crawling under my skin. I feel them digging through my marrow. Um, I feel as if I have porous bones from the bugs that live in my body, uh, because they dug such intricate tunnels that now they can get from my ankle to my neck in seconds because they got this system worked out. I also feel
You
yeah,
got,
right.
yeah.
Like they're
I know
smart. Like
it's kind of funny because yeah, it's kind of you because yeah, like you thinking this is their current state of play. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've got all the tunnels there already, sort of thing. Yeah,
yeah, like and it took them years
but
to to dig the tunnels out and to get these systems. So now that I'm finally getting around to
yeah,
taking care of them, it's they've already got it all figured out. They got it on easy street. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like I'm I'm invading an armory. You know what I mean? It's not going to go well. They already got it all
you
situated.
know, we can see the light-hearted side, but I think what you're not saying and what this is a lot with people with psychosis is that it's actually a hell of a torture, isn't it? It's not pleasant what you go when what you go through. People think that like once this interview is over we just relax. No, we're still going through the symptoms.
No.
So I think it's like I think that's why we need to raise awareness, because it's a hellish experience that is chronic. Um, so I think that's worth saying, to be honest with you.
It is very much worth saying. To put it into perspective, we began this interview at 10 a.m. I've been awake since 7 o'clock because I knew I needed to wake up to steel myself emotionally to discuss these things because it isn't often that I'm able to
Yeah,
in such an open forum. Um, yes, I am tortured by my own brain on a daily basis. It hurts to go
yeah,
outside. It hurts to empathize. I love to empathize, but it hurts me because I'm aware of the fact that let one thing go wrong and I'm going to use all of their information against them. Like it's almost like I have to keep myself on safety mode, otherwise I will create enemies. It's really quite torturous. And like for example, like I cannot because I'm diagnosed with schizophrenia. I cannot own a weapon. I cannot adopt. I would feel really, really very terrible if I were to ever have children, because it is genetic, or it's a large part
yeah.
genetics. Yeah, this condition that I suffer and that we share, it is very
Yeah,
is limiting. It's damaging. It's and not only that, but
yeah,
psychosis literally damages, shrinks, and causes atrophy in your brain. So I've been going through stages of
mm,
psychosis my entire life. I now know them to be stages of psychosis. I used to just think I was cold and get a bit manic sometimes, but no, it's genuinely a psychosis. There are
mm,
parts of my brain that are smaller, that are worse off, that are damaged, and additionally, the medications that we have also cause brain damage. So
yeah,
it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. It's a
yeah,
either suffer in silence and try to work it out on your own, and suffer that way, or go through modern channels, go through psychiatry, go through therapy, and work it out and suffer that way. But there's no way to escape it. I tried for years. I got diagnosed at 18. I ran for 7 years and only got re-diagnosed at 25
mm,
because I could no longer deny it. But if I were able to still deny it, if I were able to still stay on the temptations that I was on, um, it was, you know what I mean? I would still be suffering the same ways. I would just be numb to them. And the numbness
yeah,
is really kind of it's the feeling of being numb toward your own condition is really quite terrifying because as people we got
yeah.
bodies, we got minds, we got spirits.
Mm.
So
I
to allow for
think
atrophy in
I
one
think we
area.
almost, yeah, yeah. I think we've almost got to be in a little bit of denial just to get through life, because, like you say, there's so many negative sides to this condition. Like we died 20 years earlier than a normal person. We've got to be kind of like, well, okay, it's difficult to accept, really. Um, yeah. Joshua, how do you feel about the medical system?
So I live in America. The medical system here is a jungle. Um, I have been very, very lucky to have finally found therapists and psychiatrists that listen to me and that acknowledge my conditions and that take what I say at value. I, however, have had rather negative experiences with the medical system. Um, I am fond of the fact that there is an increasing push for mental health in my country. I'm fond of the fact that help is readily available via online or in person. I, however, think that there is a huge amount of work that needs to be done. I am much more fond of the Swedish medical system because they have specialized psychosis clinics. They they understand. They don't treat it as purely a medicinal type. It is less transactional. They
Yeah.
allow
Mm.
for deviations in treatment. They allow for deviations in care. Whereas America, it's take the pill, go to sleep, shut up. Um,
Yeah. That's
and
like UK
it's
as well.
really wow. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like I'm currently in the process of applying for disability, right? And it's going to take me 9 months to even hear back a yes or a no. Um,
Yeah.
that's wild. That's a really long time to just
Yeah,
be
I heard in
broke,
America you need to get a
have nothing
lawyer
going for you. You know what I
and
mean?
this sort of thing to argue your case. Um, Yeah, that's what I've heard, and it's not easy in the UK either. There's a
You do.
long process, and they test you every 18 months anyway. But
Mhm.
yeah,
I am actually
Joshua, we're
currently
coming
gearing
up.
up
Yeah,
for. Oh, I was just going to say I'm gearing up for a state issued psychiatric assessment. I'm fixing to go and
okay,
get probed by the man. Uh, it's really quite worrying.
Joshua, we're coming up to time, so I want. Should we? Have you got anything else to add? I mean, you're welcome to come back for another recording if you want. That's absolutely fine.
Why, thank you.
Um, is so it just to finish off, is there any like words you like to say?
Well, I would like to say be nice to your local schizophrenic. We suffer in ways that you couldn't imagine. To a schizophrenic listening, I'm very sorry if you could empathize with me. That's it. It's painful, and we're all in it together. We need each other. Um, it's being mentally disturbed, uh, and I just hope and I pray that you are able to achieve equilibrium with whatever it is that you are suffering with, in the same way that I am pursuing. That equilibrium is really the key. You need to be able to find a balance between what you
Yeah,
think, what you know, and what you want to know. It's hard. It's really
and
hard. But we just
it is hard. And
had a mass shooting.
so
We just had a mass shooting in America. Um, but we just had a mass shooting in America. It took place up in Maine. There was a man who heard voices in his head, um,
yeah,
and
that's
he
right.
ended up shooting. I believe it was 18 people up in Maine just fairly recently, like this month. And I was personally hit up by people um, making fun, making light of, making insensitive comments toward me because they're aware of my condition and they're aware of his, and so they thought there was a balance. It's not a pantheon. It's not a schizophrenia is not a monolith. These conditions they manifest very differently for everybody. Um, and I think taking the time to understand people is really what we're here for. That's it. We're here to understand.
Yeah,
We're here to share. We're
that's
here to experience
that's beautiful, man.
together. You know.
You know,
Thank you, brother.
in a I think there are reasons to be hopeful. I do think that people with schizophrenia, you've also got another diagnosis, is that we do experience something on a spiritual level which most people don't, and as you say, we do have a sense of empathy, and so I think in many ways, if we get through this condition alive, we're going to be it's good for our souls, in a spiritual sense, and I yeah, that's sort of what I want to say, and I've forgotten what else I was going to say, but anyway, it's been a pleasure having you on, Joshua. I think the time goes pretty quickly, so we can, you can think about what you want to talk about in another episode, and we're welcome to do another one, um, maybe later this year or January or something, so we can do that. I'm going to tag some music on. What type of music would you like me to add?
Well, last time I did jazz. Let's do the blues this time. I feel like it's a bit more fitting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
do the
cool.
blues.
Okay,
Thank you
so
very
thank
much
you
for
very
the
much,
invite.
Joshua. Yeah, no problem at all, man.
Thank you very much, Duncan. I had a
Um,
great time.
okay, man. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you next time.